Can I interrupt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I don't know why I hadn't really thought about this, and I've never actually seen this given much credence at all. But if he has such an ironclad alibi, well, maybe he did do it, but he hired it out. Like, he may have hired somebody and said, hey, I'm going to go get on the tram. Go call me. And then, okay, I'm going to my appointment. Wink, wink. Go do your job, and you'll get your 20 pounds in a couple of days when the heat dies down, because everybody's going to, you know, people do this all the time, is they get somebody killed and they expect all of the sympathy to be thrown at them, and they're the poor, sad widower now, and then it all backfires.
It just doesn't seem...
Again,
there are claims.
I totally get that it doesn't make sense for him, because that's not the way he's seen.
But it's possible.
Yeah, there are people out there who say that he did actually hire somebody to do it.
Mm-hmm. There are people out there who said that aliens did it too. So I mean,
yeah, there are. But
the Greys hated her.
They just hated her because she knew too much, I guess. I don't know.
She insulted their big eyes.
Well, another thing is that, like, everybody talks about this case being perfect, and they admire it because it's like this mastermind chess game. Which, okay, one of the things that Wallace liked was chess, but he was horrible at it. He was so bad at it. I probably could have beat him, and I'm like, can't play chess at all. I mean, he was okay. He won every once in a while.
I thought he was kind of mediocre rather than actually terrible.
All right.
Yeah, he wasn't terrible. He was a mediocre player. I gotta agree with Joe.
I'm gonna say mediocre at best. But he was not this, like, chess mastermind. Chess wasn't his whole life. He liked it, sure, but he liked chemistry too. He liked botany too. He liked playing with electrics too. He liked playing the violin. He was awful at the violin. He liked things he wasn't really very good at.
Yeah, no, he hadn't actually been playing the violin very long. He took that up really late in life.
Right.
The violin is a tough
hard,
instrument.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, it seems like it was a thing that he liked. And it happened that, the call was placed when he was at this chess club, but he didn't go that often.
It also appears that the media at the time really drove home the idea that he was some kind of chess mastermind.
Yeah.
Because there's spreads from the time that you can see, and they look at his long, spindly, pointy fingers. He obviously has a genius brain.
Yeah.
All this really weird claims that you could get away with at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the whole chess thing, it's the media's fault.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I just think it's interesting, and I just want to make sure everybody knows he wasn't some, like, mastermind chess player. He was a mediocre at best player.
Yeah, I think he was an intelligent guy.
Your smarts and your gamesmanship are two different things.
Yeah, no, you can be very smart and be a lousy chess player.
I'm very smart, and I'm a terrible chess player.
Oh, you're very smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we're saying today.
No,
I mean, yes, that's true. You don't have to be smart to be a good chess player and vice versa. But I don't see it. I don't see him as this, like, calculator. I mean, he lost his job so many times, and he kind of, like, he seemed kind of like this meek little, I want to use the term bumbling. I don't think that's right, but he just kind of seems like,
well, often criminal masterminds want you to believe that. But didn't you see The Usual Suspects?
It's true.
Yeah, that's true, except for that he would have, if he had been taking that personality on, he would have appeared that way in his trial too, right? He wouldn't have appeared detached and cold.
Yeah.
Right? Which makes me think it's more authentic. All of the interactions they hear about before his wife's murder, I think he's kind of awkward and weird and, again, bumbly, even though that's not the right word. And then after he sees his wife having been bludgeoned to death, he detaches and goes cold, and that seems like a normal human behavior to me, but apparently to everybody else that seems like a criminal mastermind, so there you go.
Yeah.
So if it's not him,
then who?
Yeah.
That's the big question, right? There are a couple other suspects, actually, and one of them is a young man by the name, well, he was young at the time, excuse me. He's dead now. He wasn't young. His name is Richard Perry, and he was 22 years old, and he had very recently left or been fired from his job with the Prudential.
I didn't see anything that indicated that he'd been fired.
I saw a lot that indicated that he'd been sort of let go because apparently he had a similar job as Wallace did.
Right.
He was like a junior.
Right. And I know where you're going with that, but the things that I had read all indicated that he was there for a while after everything happened, but nothing that I read indicated that he was fired. It just he left.
Yeah.
He went to a job at a similar company.
I heard that there was a little bit of embarrassment over money not turned in, and then his parents came forward and paid basically the £30 difference.
Then you found something.
So he
that
didn't get.
Okay.
Yeah, he did not get fired exactly, but he did leave the job. And
that's clarification.
He was asked kindly to leave.
And then there was a rumor that Wallace had played a part in that.
Yeah, there was that rumor that Wallace knew because he had taken over some of Wallace's account when Wallace had a bout of meningitis.
I think it was
pneumonia.
I think it was bronchitis.
Bronchitis. One of those.
Meningitis is.
You're right.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
Bronchitis, right?
I think it was bronchitis.
So Perry had been collecting. And somebody, I think, said, this account didn't pay in full. And Wallace thought, that's odd. I'm sure they did. And it turned out that Perry had stolen some money. And Wallace reported him or didn't report it. You can read some accounts that say, and Perry just didn't report him that Wallace didn't report Perry, but that Perry knew that Wallace knew. Or I believe more that probably Wallace reported Perry because...
He might have reported him, or he might have gone to Perry and said, hey, dude, you either cough up this money or I'm turning you in. And so that's when he went to his parents and got some money and paid it off.
And then left.
Eventually left anyway.
Yeah, because he really fancied himself as a bit of a playboy. Mm-hmm. But he was always broke.
Yeah.
I've got all this money.
Yeah.
Just not right now.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Speaking of Perry, he is a suspect for some people, and then there's other people who say that... P.D. James, for example, the mystery writer.
Oh, we're going to talk about this.
You want to talk about that later?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Right.
Sorry. Just keep your hat on.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. There's another.
Okay.
Did you hear anything about Joseph Caleb Marsden?
Yeah, but we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that later
too.
Okay.
So it seems that actually collection agents at the time would, walk around, like Steve was saying, and collect their money, their dues, and keep them in a lockbox, often overnight at their homes, and then go in the next morning and turn all the money in.
Yeah,
and that's what Wallace tended to do.
Although I don't think it was even a lockbox. I think it was more like a cigar box.
It's just a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perry, apparently being the jerk that he was, and he knew Julia. Because I guess Perry and Wallace had been mildly friendly, at least when Perry was doing Wallace's collections.
Yeah, because he had to stop by at the end of the day and turn the money over.
Yeah. So the theory goes that he made the fake call in order to rob Wallace because he thought Wallace would have all of these collections at the end of the next night. And he knocked on the door and Julia said, "Oh, it's you, Mr. Perry, come in." And so he came in and bludgeoned her to death and tried to rob Mr. Wallace of all of his takings for the day. But it turned out that it was just like a couple pounds.
It was 4 pounds, I heard.
Something like that. Yeah, some tiny amount. And so it was, that sucked for him, and he left, and I don't know, never came forward, obviously.
Yeah,
obviously.
My understanding about the way it worked is, and I'm not sure exactly what the timing was, but it's like there were some people who paid like once a week, and other people paid like once a month. Mm-hmm. So on those days when the once a month payers are paying,
there's a lot of money.
Then it's going to be a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
So he miscalculated.
Maybe he misfigured which day it was going to be that all
be.
these people were going to be paying and making their monthly payment or not.
Yeah. So there's a little evidence, I guess. I don't know how reliable it is, but
I was going to say this is circumstantial to me.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
He did have a car. Perry did, and apparently a mechanic either saw a bloody glove in Perry's car or saw Perry hosing the interior of his car out with a high-pressured hose while his gloves were covered in blood. Not totally sure. And then Perry's alibi, when the police questioned him, was given by his then-fiancée, who later jilted, redacted the statement, and offered a new statement saying that Perry had not been with her that night.
Did you say redacted?
Yeah, what did I say? Retracted is what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Crossed it out.
Yeah. She took a Sharpie to it.
Same thing, yeah. So, lesson to all of you gentlemen out there. If you're in a relationship and you murder someone and your significant other is your alibi, do not jilt that person.
Stay with that person
Stay with that person forever.
I know, seriously. I mean, after Amber, haven't you guys learned your lesson?
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, she said, Perry asked me to provide this alibi. I have no idea where he was that night.
Yeah.
I mean, he had time. He had a kind of possible motive. He had a shoddy alibi. Shoddier alibi than Wallace had, to be fair. There's actually more evidence for Perry to have done this than there is Wallace.
Definitely. Well, there's not much in the way of evidence, but definitely it's possible, where it doesn't appear to be really possible that Wallace could have done it.
Yeah. So the only other thing to add to this is there were a couple journalists at the time who were pretty convinced that Perry had done it, and they questioned him, and he kept saying, "No, I didn't do it. No, I didn't do it." But they finally questioned him on his doorstep in 1966.
On Death's doorstep?
No, on Perry's doorstep.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. In 1966, excuse me. And reportedly, he had a shockingly in-depth understanding of the case, including the fact that he knew lots of details that were way unknown by the layperson, and details on lower-level witnesses, like when they died or how they died, and basically knowledge that somebody shouldn't have necessarily. It seems that he took a very keen interest in the case.
Yeah, although, he was questioned by the police at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is that unusual because, number one, it was a very famous case. He was peripherally involved. So, I don't think...
Well, it's in his interest to learn as much as he can.
But to continue to learn about... he tracked those witnesses and knew about their lives after the case, for instance.
Maybe he was trying to solve it.
Maybe he was, yeah. Maybe he was, yeah. So that's the evidence for Perry. And then there's one of the things that Joe was about to talk about, and now we're going to actually talk about it, is P.D. James's claim that Perry made the prank phone call, but then Wallace committed the murder anyway, and that they were totally unconnected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she said because Perry apparently was a little angry over the whole incident at the Prudential,
which makes sense.
Yeah, and so just for fun, he thought he'd play a mean little prank and send him on a wild goose chase. And so it might have been him, and that would explain why the phone call was made from that particular phone booth, because he's going to observe him leaving for his chess club thing. Perry, by the way, was involved with an acting club, and they actually met at the same place that the chess club did.
Yeah.
And so he would have known, he had seen him there, he'd seen Wallace at the chess club at that place before, so he would have had an idea. So it's Monday night. He sort of stakes out the place on Wolverton Street where they lived, and then sees him leaving. Assumes it's for the chess club. Goes to the phone booth, makes that phone call, and leaves that message, sending him on a wild goose chase. But it was just a mean practical joke, more than anything else. It wasn't.
Yeah, the whole thing about finding that street sounds so much like just a practical joke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a snipe hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then. So I read an article or two about P.D. James's claims that she had solved it and that she knew it was Wallace that had done it. And I still don't quite get her argument.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I really don't actually.
I think her theory about Perry making the phone call is reasonable, but as far as Wallace, I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, I'm not either. And then we have one more theory.
Well.
With Marsden, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Joseph Caleb Marsden.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had. And this again was from John Gannon's book, The Killing of Julia Wallace, and he alleges that Wallace hired Joseph Caleb Marsden to do it through Richard Gordon Perry, because actually Perry knew Marsden, and so Marsden actually did the dirty work, and that's the theory.
Yeah. Yeah, or the other theory, I also heard that Marsden did the dirty work for Perry, not for Walt. I mean, there's, one of the things that is troubling about this case, for instance, is there are a lot of books written about this case.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the information in there is shoddy at best, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
One of them says that it's unknown if Wallace won the prize for the chess championship in which he was competing, which is absurd because he played in one official, maybe two, maybe, I don't know if that one on January 19th counted or not, towards the championship, but there were 8 games. He played in one and lost, played in another one and won, but it was different. Then he was in jail.
Yeah.
So he definitely didn't win. So I don't know why this book is saying, well, we don't know if he won or not.
Because it was a series that ran through, I think,
it was March.
February, March, somewhere in there, and it ended. So there's no way.
Yeah, he couldn't have. But it just goes to show you that even before the internet existed, there's bilge getting out there in the public spaces.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I just remembered while we were talking about this, that second match that he played that night, he played against a friend who was ranked like a couple ranks higher than him. So they were ineligible to play against each other in the championship.
So it didn't count.
It didn't count.
That's
He did win that game
on that card
right.
that we see on the internet. Okay.
He won the game, but officially he only played one game in the championship and he lost. So he definitely...
And he was super proud of winning that match.
He was.
He talked
which he should have been
all night long with everybody that night about
he should have been
the final move.
Because this guy was a
better,
really good chess player. Actually, a really good chess player. Yeah. But I guess my final thoughts on this is I'm just gonna quote Gerald Abrams. He was a barrister who lived in Liverpool at the time. He's written a lot about the Wallace case, and he says, quote, "Journalists have agitated their readers for many years with the question, was Wallace guilty? There are three approaches to this question. One, legally, it's academic. There was no evidence against him. Two, personally, his acquaintances, excluding those who revel in the troubles of their, quote, friends, seem convinced of his innocence. The author takes the view that to vest Wallace with guilt in the circumstance is to credit him with a mental power, a skill, an agility, and a cold-blooded nerveless efficiency of which he seemed utterly incapable." True.
Seems fair.
Yeah. And three, scientifically, it is a much easier hypothesis to assume another person as a murderer whose task would have been easier, mental, effortless. By the principle of simple explanation, Wallace was innocent, unquote.
Yeah.
I especially like him saying it's crediting Wallace with a lot of stuff that he was just not capable of, which is true.
Which most of us, frankly, are not capable of. So, I think he's entirely correct.
I think...
Either that or he's a mad genius.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I just don't think Wallace did it, but I don't know who did.
We said this in the very beginning, because we don't know anything about Julia. I mean, really, there's very little on record that we know about her. We don't know if there was something in her past that came back to bite her.
The police were able to rule out neither of them had any lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of them had any debts, really, that anybody could find. So it seemed unlikely that it was wrapped up in Julia, I guess.
Well, but
maybe it was.
The amount of anger that was in the murder, because it was effing brutal.
Mm-hmm.
It really means that somebody had a personal stake that they were taking out on her, whether it be a past jilted lover or a wrong family member, or hell, I don't know, maybe she had a kid and she gave that kid up and that kid tracked her down all these years later and said, "You made me an orphan, I'm going to take it out on you." I mean, I don't know what it is. There could be a bajillion things, or there could truly still be nothing.
Yeah.
It could actually be somebody who didn't even know her and just a serial killer who just wanted to murder somebody.
Or just some weirdo who needed money and knew he had money.
Yeah.
Again, maybe this is where Perry comes into he knows this guy who's a real scuzzbag and says, "Hey, I know these people aren't going to be home, and I know he keeps a buttload of money in a cigar box."
Then you run into as far as I can tell, there was no sign of a struggle.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything that there was a sign of a struggle. And she let the person in.
Yeah.
So you assume that she knew them and that it started out totally peacefully, or at least mildly comfortable, and they surprised her with the hit over the head.
Yeah. And that leads to our last theory, and this has actually been put out there, which is that it was the Johnstons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
or
it
at least one
been.
of the Johnstons.
I mean, it could have been.
Yeah.
Really, realistically, it could have been.
They had a key.
They had a key.
Yeah.
She knew them.
Yep.
They could have said, "We're just going to come around for."
They would have known about the money.
She could have been cheating with the Johnstons. I mean, really.
Yeah, who knows?
Cheating with one of them, cheating with both of them.
Oh,
it's possible.
Yeah, really. I don't know if I'd want to cheat with Julia myself.
I don't know if I would either, but hey, some people are into stuff like that. So there you go. Anyway, Steve, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't. This one it's baffling.
Yeah.
It's baffling because of the amount of bilge, as Joe put it, that's out there.
Yeah.
And the total lack of evidence for anything other than the fact that the only thing that we can confirm is that she died most likely by being beaten to death with a fire poker. That's really the only thing I got.
I'm pretty confident that she died by being beaten.
Yeah.
But that's really the only solid fact we have in this entire case.
Yeah, so somebody